Hi, I'm Brandy. Welcome to Careers Unchecked. This is the podcast for high-achieving women who are doing well on paper, but something just doesn't feel right. Maybe you got the promotion and it feels heavier than you expected. Maybe your role keeps expanding, but your compensation just isn't. Maybe you're exhausted in a way that sleep just won't fix. Or maybe you had a quiet moment where you thought, is this actually what I want? I'm a career coach and a first-generation professional. I spent over a decade in corporate leadership, and at one point I applied to more than 250 jobs trying to figure out what work actually felt like mine. I've hired teams, built systems, burned out a few times, pivoted quietly, and rebuilt. What I've learned from my own story and from coaching hundreds of women is this: you don't need more noise. You need support, you need clarity, and you need a plan that actually fits your life. Around here, we reduce the mental load, we untangle burnout and imposter syndrome, and we build strategy that feels aligned, not performative. And we move forward in a way that's both grounded and strategic. You'll leave with practical tools, real frameworks, and perspective you can use right away, so you can stop overthinking and start making moves that feel authentic. This is Careers Unchecked. Let's get into it. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes with being in the middle of a decision you haven't made yet. And I've been in that space recently. I've been sitting with this question of what I actually want my work to look like. I'm balancing two businesses, one that I care deeply about and one that feels more aligned with this chapter of my life. And what I didn't expect was how much energy it would take to not decide. There were days where I would sit down to work and instead of actually moving anything substantially forward, I was toggling between the two, thinking, okay, where do I need to be focusing right now? Which one matters more? What's the right move here? When's the next deadline? And by the end of the day, I was exhausted and I hadn't really made as much meaningful progress on either business as I wanted. And this is something I see with my clients all the time. High achievers are often incredibly talented and often in more than one area. We've got options. We have range. We can succeed in multiple places in multiple directions. And on one hand, what a gift. But on the other hand, it makes decisions so much harder and complicated. Because it's not, can I do this? It's which version of my potential do I actually want to choose in this chapter? And gosh, that's a very different question. That window between knowing something needs to change and actually knowing what to do, that's where a lot of people get stuck, myself included. And the advice we usually get in that space is follow your gut. Hey, make a pros and cons list. And I'm not saying those aren't bad tools, but sometimes they just don't quite get the job done, you know? So today I want to offer something more useful than that. And before we get into anything tactical, I want to name something out loud for the listeners that are, like me, struggling with this chapter of life. Most people don't arrive at a big career decision rested, clear-headed, with tons of capacity to think it through. They arrive after months and months of feeling off and exhausted. Or after a single conversation where everything shifts, or in the middle of a season where life just feels like a lot. And that's what I see all the time. People trying to solve it by thinking harder. Hi. Welcome to my last few weeks. Researching more, asking more people for advice, revisiting the same pros and cons list over and over again, trying to get certainty, but not actually getting any closer in that process. So if that's you, I want to say this clearly. You are not bad at decisions, you're just tired. And you're trying to think your way through something that requires more than thinking. Slow is actually faster here. I know, annoying. So let's talk about what actually makes a career decision hard. It's not always just the options. It's a few different things. The information, likely emotionally loaded. Multiple things that matter are intention. And number 3, the stakes probably feel high enough that getting it wrong feels like it's going to cost a lot. Every option has a but and an and you're trying to weigh all of that at once. And there's research on this that I think is really helpful. Organizational psychologist Paul Nutt, he studied hundreds of major decisions over time. And what he found was the biggest predictor of regret wasn't the outcome. It was the process used to make your decision. Specifically, decisions made reactively under pressure or with a narrowed view of options. This leads to significantly more regret, even when the outcomes are similar. And that matters because it shifts what we're actually trying to do. We're not trying to guarantee the right outcome. We're trying to make a decision we can stand behind. And this is where I had to check myself. I'm not stuck because I don't have enough information. I'm stuck because I'm trying to force clarity from a place of pressure, trying to land on the right answer instead of understanding what the decision was actually about. So here's how I'm thinking about moving through this period of my life where I'm making hard decisions. First, I need to understand what brought me here. What changed? What was the one moment? Was it a slow build? Was it a conversation? Because what all of these questions will tell you is what this decision is really about. Maybe for you, it's a promotion that feels heavy. And that's a very different question than suffering from burnout for 3 years, right? Even if I look at both of them, like, should I stay or should I go? They're going to be different. And the other thing I have to remember is I got to separate the urgency from the decision, because a lot of urgency is not real. It's pressure from the outside from being uncertain for too long. Yes, real deadlines exist, but they're usually more flexible than they feel. And this is something that really shifted for me recently when I was talking to my own business coach. She asked a simple question: how many years do you realistically think you have ahead of you in your career? And I kind of laughed at first because, if I'm being honest, I don't do well with idle hands, so I'll probably never fully retire. I'm not saying I'm going to do this forever, but I do enjoy working, so it will probably just look different over time. Anyway, I digress. What she wanted to know was about this career. Like, how long do I think I'll actually be doing this? And when I thought about it, I was like, well, it's probably going to be around 30 years, give or take. And saying that out loud made me stop, because I realized I was trying to force a decision like everything depended on getting it right for right now, when in reality, I've been out of corporate for 6 years at this point, and so much has changed in that time, and I still have 5 times that amount of time ahead of me to grow, to evolve, to pivot, to figure this thing out. And that perspective alone took so much pressure off of me, because not every decision has to carry the weight of the next 30 years. Some decisions are just about this season or even the next season. But here's the question I'm using right now. If I gave myself 2 more weeks, what actually changes? And sometimes the answer is not much, which tells you the urgency might not be as real as it feels. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm getting really clear on my non-negotiables, not my full wish list, my actual bottom line. There's research from decision scientist Sheena Iyengar who says that it shows when we try to hold too much criteria at once, decision quality drops. Not because our brain can't process all of it clearly. Instead, we need to narrow it down to 2 or 3 non-negotiables. And this is really important. A non-negotiable should be something you would walk away over, right? It's not a preference. A preference is something you could work around. Most people's lists, full of preferences. And that's why nothing feels clear. And then the last thing I'm doing is I'm zooming out. My friend Megan and I recently had coffee, and she shared this perspective with me, and it stuck. She journals and asks her 8-year-old self and her 80-year-old self what they think about a decision. Because right now, you're probably stuck inside the emotion of it, like I am. This helps you step outside of that. And then when all of this has been done and you still don't know, I just want you to know that's okay too. And I'm living that right now. It does not mean the process has failed. It means clarity isn't ready yet. So instead of forcing a decision, what if you just ran an experiment? Because not every decision has to be permanent, right? Have the conversation, try a small version, act as if this were true for a week. You gather data because sometimes your brain can't solve it without experiencing it. So if you've been sitting through a tough decision, going back and forth, trying to land on the right answer, I'm just going to offer you a different question to think about. What decision would I make if I trusted myself to handle the outcome, regardless of what it was? Because that's actually what this comes down to. It's not certainty, but trust. Trust in yourself that you can adjust, you can pivot, you can recover. You're going to figure it out because you've done that before. And when you're in the messy middle of this right now, take a breath, because nothing's gone wrong. You're just in the part that requires vulnerability and honesty. The goal is not to make a perfect decision. It's a decision made on the purpose that you feel with your eyes open, something that reflects who you actually are and what you need in this moment. And if you need support navigating that, please reach out. I'm walking this too. You can find me at talentcareercoaching.com. I'll see you next week. Thanks for being here on this episode of Careers Unchecked. If something from today is sitting with you and a good next step feels like taking our burnout quiz, I want you to head over to talentcareercoaching.com. This quiz is free, it's short, and it's designed to help you figure out what you're feeling is burnout, or maybe it's misalignment and something about your work is no longer a fit. Those aren't always the same thing, and it really does matter which one it is so that you can go deeper and figure out what is actually happening. Just so you know, everything else lives there too. Blog posts, past episodes, free resources, and then obviously how to book a call or work with me if that makes sense for you too. All of it is there. In the meantime, I'll see you next week.